Welcome to the JMJ Commercial Realty Podcast. Dive into market insights, winning strategies, and the stories shaping today's commercial real estate landscape. Let's get started.
So welcome everyone to the JMJ Commercial Realty Podcast, episode 8. I am Adam Schertzer. I am an advisor at JMJ Commercial Realty, and I work alongside with Josh Cedia, the owner and broker at JMJ Commercial Realty. How you doing, Josh?
I am fantastic. How are you this morning?
I am wonderful. I can't believe we've made it to 8.
Yes,
Crazy 8s. So what crazy topic are we going to talk about today in our 8th podcast?
I think it's one that you hold close to your heart, which is cold calling.
Yes. Cold calling, one of my least favorite things to do, but I do definitely understand the value of it. And if it's something that you don't like to do, maybe by the end of this podcast, you can take a few tips away from this and kind of understand the importance of how it works in commercial real estate, or maybe, in any type of sales position. So why don't you just give everyone a little intro and background in case they're tuning into this one for the first time on who we are, what we do.
Sure. So the company's called JMJ Commercial Realty. We're based in Massachusetts, and we help buyers, sellers, landlords, and tenants with commercial space. We're more generalists, so we help with all different types of commercial space, whether it's office, retail, industrial, land, multi-unit residential. So that's a quick background on who we are.
Great. And so, going off of our last podcast, if you just coming from episode 7, we were talking about networking. And networking is a great way to build your network and meet people and get leads. But another way to do that too is cold calling. So that's what we're going to talk about that in this episode. So I think if anyone's had any type of, sales experience or a job like that where, you might go in and they're like, all right, here's the phone book. Start at A, work your way down. I want you to make, 100 calls today in the next 8 hours and try to sell, whatever they're selling. Is that kind of what it is like for us, or how does it work?
Well, I guess I wanted to clarify. There might be some younger listeners who don't know what a phone book
Uh,
is. Would you like to tell them what a phone book is?
yes, well, a phone book was a large, thing was huge. It probably covered an area. So we're in the greater Boston area. Trying to remember the phone book that we had. It would probably cover, a certain amount of towns. And you'd have the white pages at the beginning of the phone book where it was, all the addresses. Say you needed to find someone's phone number and you knew their last name. I could look up Cedia, be like, all right, go to the S's, be like Cedia, Cedia, Cedia. And good thing it's not a common last name. And I could find your phone number if it was listed. Or say you're looking for, a restaurant and you want to order takeout. You can't just go on the internet and say, Chinese restaurants near me. You go to the restaurant section of the yellow pages and say, oh, look at there's you know, Super Palace Chinese restaurant. There's their phone number. So that is what the white pages, yellow pages phone book was all about. I guess today we're not looking in the phone book, but say you get a list of businesses in the area, or, you can find a list of, you know, um, everyone that lives in, a certain town or a certain area if you're trying to target those markets.
Right.
Um, so,
Yeah. So, I mean, cold calling can be definitely can be a very scary thing. I had a lot of fear, when I first started doing cold calling, because it's like
mhm,
I didn't really know what to say or who should I call. And so I've been doing commercial real estate brokerage for about 9+ years now. And I look at, uh, the early times when I did cold calling, and it was just more of a very general approach. I just say, this is my name and this is who I work for, and do you need help with commercial real estate? And it really wasn't the most targeted kind of successful approach. But I felt like, I wanted to reach out to local business owners and see if they might need any help. It was coming from a sincere place.
mhm,
But, many years later now, I kind of look back and say, oh, I understand why that wasn't so successful compared to maybe some different different approaches that I would use now. So
mhm.
not maybe, but definitely. So
So compared to that, what kind of approaches do you use now?
yeah, so now it's more of a selective, targeted approach. A lot of times it's when I have I may have a client who asks me, "Hey, I really want to purchase this building," or "Hey, can you find out about this building? I want to see if they would want, would sell it, or maybe I can lease it to rent it." So I'm calling with a specific reason,
Mhm.
or I might have a listing, I might have a specific property for sale, and I want to reach out to, um, say it's a dental practice. I might be making a list of other dental offices in a certain area and reaching out to them saying, I have a dental property. It's kind of a quiet thing, but, would you have any interest in expanding your practice? And so, you know, really being very deliberate with why I'm calling and trying to be very quick. I don't need to spend half an hour, initially. It's just trying to get to the decision maker, introduce myself very briefly, explain kind of what value I bring and why I'm calling. And if it works and they want more information, that's great. If not, then I'm just on to the next person. So that's kind of how I think about it now versus a very, very general approach in the past.
Yeah, and I can see how
Would
that
you?
it makes it a little bit easier, have a targeted message. You're not technically trying to sell something for them. You're trying more, it's more of offering them a service or, something that can help their business. I think a lot of people think of cold calling like, you're sitting down to dinner and your phone rings and nowadays with caller ID, you can kind of see, spam or you see a phone number you don't know. Um, so most people wouldn't pick it up, but a lot of those times, those people on the other line are, oh, would you like a subscription to the New York Times or would you like, it's more they're looking for that quick like sale turnaround or something, Can I talk to you about your health care or can I, what banks or anything like that. So in this sense, it still is cold calling because we don't have a relationship with the person we're calling. Um, but you have something that you're offering them that can potentially help their business. So
Yeah, and a lot of times, I mean, this is how I think of it. But let's say I have something an off market listing. It's something that's not publicly out there. I'm calling a very selective group of people. I mean, I think it's kind of a neat thing. Like, you're getting a call about an opportunity that can, if you're in business, maybe it can make you, more money. Maybe it can, maybe you're leasing space and you want to purchase something. Maybe that's an area that you really, yeah, are interested in. So I try and look at it as like it's something kind of neat that I'm offering, but sometimes people are busy. Sometimes people don't want to receive any calls or whatever. I understand, but I think having a positive approach mentality, having a
mhm.
positive mental approach is helpful because there's a lot of rejection when it comes to cold calling. You may make 100 calls and 90 plus people say no, not interested, not interested. So you need to be able to persist,
Mhm.
and sometimes that's hard to do versus a warm situation where you already know the person, you've talked to them a lot, or this is someone has no idea who you are.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And I think a lot of people, including myself, have a hard time with that rejection and trying not to take it personally because it's not you. It's more of just they don't need your service. And even the times where, I have done cold calling, I can't think of any time where someone was like mad at me that I called or upset. It was either like, no, we're not interested, because in these situations, you're calling a business most likely.
Mhm.
Maybe you have the individual's phone number, maybe it's their cell phone or something, but most of the time, you're calling a place of business. So in this instance, they're more likely to answer the phone, I think, than if you were to call an individual, because they're looking for business. Maybe that's a customer calling them, and they don't want to miss that phone call. So you will get someone on the phone. I guess in that sense too is when you're calling, you might not always get the person you need to talk with, right? Like how do you get to that person? How do you know who the person is that you need to talk with?
Yeah, so I mean, sometimes with these databases, or if you create a list, it will have the business owner's name, or you go onto the website and you type in the name of the business, and there's a little about us page or leadership page, and you can kind of see who's running the company.
Mhm.
But I tend to, if I don't know, then sometimes you're speaking with a receptionist, and I just ask, can I speak with the owner of the company? So you really try and get to directly to the people who can make decisions. Um, Sometimes you might speak with someone who's not part of the leadership group, and they're like, no, we're all set. But perhaps if it was someone who was in the leadership group, maybe there was an interest there. So there is an interest for what you're selling. So
Hmm.
um, yeah, I think if you can't get someone right away, a lot of times people who are running companies are busy, and maybe you're just leaving a voicemail or you're leaving a message with the receptionist, and then you put it on your list to follow up. If you don't hear back, maybe a couple days later or a week later, you can check back in with them. But if they tell you they're not interested, okay, then you can move on to the next person, or it just depends on the situation. But um, at a high level, that's kind of how I'm thinking about it.
Yeah. And for people who, are kind of intimidated by it or say, oh, it's not going to work, you're not going to call someone up. They're not going to be like, oh yeah, I am interested in. Um, since you have been doing this for a while, can you share any positive stories that have led to deals or led to, relationships based on that phone call?
Yeah. I mean, I think about some of the largest commissions that I've received doing this type of work, and it's come from cold calling. So, sometimes I give that dental example. I mean, this isn't a specific line, but just that I'm thinking of like a type of profession, but um, I can think of other scenarios where maybe, it's a very specialized type of listing that you have or client that you're working with, and you're able to try and find others in that realm. So, like I said, other dental offices or other pediatricians or other, if kind of like kind in terms of reaching out to them. So, and sometimes it can be something different. I mean, I'm thinking of one where, it was like an office retail type listing. And I reached out to people who, were just very close to the property in proximity. So that's another way that you can create a list. You can look at like a radius search. You can
Mm.
say, okay, here's the address of the property. Um, Sometimes people who are just very close by, it might be a neighboring property, neighboring tenant. It might be someone that's just a couple doors down or within a mile away. They might really love that area, and they've been waiting for the right opportunity to purchase something instead of leasing something, or
Hmm.
they, for whatever reason, want to be able to expand their business. So, without specifically saying who these clients are, I mean, like I said, I've had really some of the largest commissions come from cold calling, which is surprising, but it's true.
Yeah, definitely. And it's funny when you talk about the proximity thing. I just got an email this morning from a client that I help lease a space in a building. And she reached out to me and she's already needs more space. And she asked if there was any more space in the building. And we do have two other spaces there that we've been, actively trying to find tenants for. But I never thought to even mention it to her, even the fact that, maybe she knows another business that, maybe a friend of hers has a business and she's been looking for space. And um, so, I think going back to people that we've already worked with, I mean, technically that's not really a cold call, but like you said, going to those businesses right in the area, reaching out, maybe they need to expand, or maybe they need they're not happy in the situation that they're in, and you can bring them a new place, and maybe it saves them money, maybe it allows their business to grow, and so when you think of it that way, I think we go into that, like, changing that mindset of when you're calling and contacting these people,
Yeah,
that you're bringing them these opportunities, that you're not asking them to sign up for a subscription service or something like that.
right. Another example uh, comes to mind is sometimes people will have a commercial condo unit. So they may have, a smaller space within a building that they own that unit. And maybe there's 50 other owners in that building. Maybe reaching out to the other owners in the complex and just saying, hey, by the way, there's going to be a unit coming up. I'm not going to specifically say the details right now, but if something were to come up in the building, would you be interested in owning another unit? Or if they're renting or leasing, maybe they'd like to purchase it. So that's that proximity thing, but they're actually in the building. They have an investment there. They've already started their business there. So maybe they need some more space. Maybe they want to purchase different types of things. So
Hmm.
um, it's just another example that comes to mind.
Yeah, definitely. So going back to, I know, we don't use phone books anymore. What are the tools that we can share with people to, if they're like, how do I find these businesses? Like, do I have to go on Google and just like look at a map, or is there like a database I can search, or what advice can we give to help people with that?
So there are some free services that are out there. There are also some paid services depending on the level that you need. But um, you know, you could um, even just look at some basic things. I know I've told you in the past, like you could go to your local library, and sometimes there are databases there for free that you can just put in an address and say, okay, who's near here for businesses? If a library has access to that reference material, sometimes
Hmm.
it's an online database. That's great. Sometimes you can pay for services that will tell you, who specifically the owner is and telephone numbers and email addresses. So you may pay for a service, which we do for that. So there's different levels for it, but it's kind of neat um, in the way of like creating your own opportunities, creating your own lists. You don't have to necessarily wait for, oh, is there a new listing today that could be a good fit for my client? You could look at it and say, okay, well, my client is, let's say you're helping a buyer and the buyer wants to purchase a 10,000 square foot industrial building. You could kind of look at public records of all these buildings that are in and around your town or area, and you could say, create a list of 10 to 15,000 square foot industrial buildings that are within 5 miles of my where my client wants to be, and then reach out to the owners and just say, I have a client looking to purchase. I'm sincere about it. Do you have any interest in selling? And you could kind of create your own opportunities that way. And that could work on the selling side, buying side, you know, if you're working with a landlord or a tenant, but literally it can come back with hundreds or thousands sometimes of different names and businesses. And you could just, if you're ambitious, you can just start and see where it goes. And sometimes it may be that they say no to that, but they have another need. No, I'm not interested in selling my business, or my real estate, but can you help me with this thing? Or actually, I'm looking for this. Do you have anything? And maybe connections can be made that way. So you just never know what you're going to find when it comes to cold calling.
Yeah, they might have, space available in their building that they've been having a hard time leasing, and you can help them with that. Um, So yeah, no, that's a great way to do it, and makes me think of some of the clients I'm working with now that I probably should be doing that for. And then also that, if you do find something off market like that, another benefit is you're not competing with any other buyers at that time. So you're the only one coming in where you might have a property where someone lists it and, you know, there's six offers on the place, and so it makes it a lot more competitive and harder to try to get that deal done.
Yeah.
Um,
And I was just going to mention sometimes it can be that, like a recent example is I saw a sign as I was driving around. I saw a sign that just said for rent, and it was some office space, and it had a telephone number. And I spoke with the owner and got a chance to meet with her. And I think there's a strong potential that that could turn into multiple new listings just from it was a cold
mhm.
call. Didn't know who the person was, but was able to kind of explain what we do, and sounds like there could be some opportunity to work together. So even though it's someone you really don't know, just trying to move past the fear and being uncomfortable to trying to demonstrate value and how you can help.
Yeah, and I guess another thing to note about those situations is, you wouldn't do that if the sign said, ABC Realty on it. We're looking at signs that are just generic, or maybe, for lease by owner or something like that. I guess is it sort of safe to assume if there isn't, a logo or of a real estate company on these signs that most likely it's probably the owner or maybe the management car or something like that, that they're not working with a real estate agent?
Yeah, generally, if you're just seeing, for rent, for sale, and it just has a telephone number. But to your point, if you're seeing another commercial real estate company or real estate company that's advertising, you'd want to talk directly with them. But
Mm.
It could be that you talk with that agent and work out a deal together where you represent the buyer, they represent the seller,
Hmm.
or maybe you have a relationship, you get to know that agent, and maybe it's they don't have that property, but they have something else, or they do have that property, but if that's not a good fit, maybe they have something else that could be a good fit for your client.
Right. Yeah, and that goes back to our previous episode of building your network. It's a great way to build your network by getting to know other commercial real estate agents. I know for me, that's been a great way to learn about the business and also to, help my clients, whether it's something that they're looking for or and vice versa. When I see listings of people that I know, it's a lot easier to get in touch with them too, because they probably already have you in their phone. They see your name pop up. They're probably more likely to, pick up right away than let that go to voicemail and have a hard time getting in touch with them. So.
Yeah, yeah. So building up that network is huge, whether it's other agents, other clients. Yeah,
Hmm. Yeah.
and not being afraid.
So let's do this fun little example here of a cold call. I know for me, it's been hard to do, but I think with anything that you want to get better at, repetition is the best way to do it.
Totally.
And whether you're, doing it in front of a mirror, giving a speech or something like that to when you actually are ready to do it. And with cold calling, to kind of get me ready to do it, we did a lot of role playing where I would call you up, you would call me at something like that, and you'd be the person I was calling. So let's just, run through that right now just to give someone an example of what it might sound like when you're calling someone up for the first time.
And you can always, when you're making phone calls, I would suggest, especially the early stages, and I did this, but print out a
Hmm.
little script, just at a high level, this is my
Yeah.
name, what I'm trying to do. And then if you get flustered, you can just look at
Hmm.
the sheet and refer to it. So
Right. And I know, now you're at the point where, yeah, you don't need a script. You know what you're going to say and you get same thing. But yeah, definitely having that in the beginning, but trying not to read it like a script. You don't
yes.
want to come across like you're a robot or something like that, even though now robots today with AI sound like a person. So that's probably a dated example as well. So what do you want? Do you want to be the person we're calling? Do you want to be the agent? Which role do you want
Or
to take?
you pick.
Okay.
What would you
Um,
like?
so why don't I, since you see you have more experience with the cold calling, let's give, the audience you calling me up. I'm going to be a business owner,
Okay.
and you try to, tell me about something.
Okay. So I'll do the ring ring. Here we go.
Mhm.
Ring 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 ring
Man, who's calling me?
ring.
Hello, Al's Game Emporium.
Hi, I'm looking to speak with Al, please.
Yeah, this is Al. How can I help you?
Al, my name is Josh Cedia, and I'm a commercial real estate broker with JMJ Commercial Realty. The reason that I was calling is I have another gaming site that's about maybe a half an hour away from where you are now. And it's not advertised or anything. It's kind of a quieter situation, but just wondering if you may have any interest in expanding your gaming emporium.
Hmm, that sounds pretty interesting. Where's it located?
So I'm not going to give this specific town right now, just because we would need a confidentiality agreement. I know there's not too many gaming sites that are out there, so I certainly want to be respectful for some of the other operators around the area. But I can assure you, it's a really long, standing business, and they're looking to sell their property. If you're interested, I wanted to reach out to just a small number of people to see if that could be of interest.
Yeah, no, I think definitely something I'd be interested looking at. Could you send me some information, or I'd be happy to sign that agreement too, if that helps get more information on
Yeah, yeah. So what's the best email address for you?
it. So it's Al at alsgameemporium.com.
Okay. And do you have just out of curiosity, like how big is your site now? And if you were going to expand, are you looking for kind of a similar size, or what are you thinking about?
Yeah, we're around about 10,000 square feet. I'd be looking for something probably around the same, but I'd be open to seeing different options.
Yeah. And this one, has some nuances to it, but if it was something that you could lease versus purchase, would you be open to that too? We can
Uh,
talk about it.
yeah, yeah, sure. I'd like to see, if the numbers work out.
Okay, good. Well, I appreciate your time. I'm going to send you that information. And how about this? I'll send it over to you, and once you sign off, I'll send you, the specifics. and then we can talk more. Does that sound good?
All right, that sounds great. Thanks, Josh.
Yeah, thank you, Al. Take care.
Bye. Man, I want to go to Al's Gaming Emporium.
That sounds cool. 10,000 square feet.
I know of Gaming Emporium.
Yeah,
So that was an example of one that, that goes well. The customer me was pretty receptive to it and open. I'm not saying they're all going to go like that. I don't know if we should, give an example of one where, the customer, I think everyone knows, calling someone up, be like, I don't want to talk to you or something, you could get that. I think a lot of times too, when you're making these cold calls is you don't get someone, you get voicemail.
right.
Um,
We try an example of that where maybe you can leave the voicemail on your side.
yeah, exactly. And especially with voicemail, it's like, you don't want to go on and on and on. You want to get right to the point. Um, same with, they're probably only going to listen to the first 5, 10 seconds and make a decision if it's worth going on. So,
Yeah. So let's say if you were leaving that voicemail and you have a gaming place, same thing. And instead of reaching Al, you got a voicemail for Al. How
yeah.
would you leave that message?
All right. Put me on the spot here. Let's try. Okay. Um, so let me call up. Ring, 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 ring.
You've reached Al's Gaming Emporium. Unfortunately, we're not available right now. Please leave your name and number, and we'll get back to you as soon as we can. Beep.
Hi, Al. My name's Adam Schertz. I'm with JMJ Commercial Realty, and I'm reaching out to you today because we have a new off-market property available. It was a previous gaming facility within 30 minutes of your location. So we're reaching out to all different gaming businesses in the area. Wanted to see if you're interested in expanding. If you are, please give me a call back at 781 bleep 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 bleep. Thank you.
Great. I would just say in the future, you don't want to put the bleeps in, just put in your whole telephone
It
number. You can
is.
share it with the audience
Yeah.
if you want.
I mean, I guess I could give people my number. They can go on our website and find the number too.
Yeah, but
For
go
some
ahead.
reason, as I'm going through this, I'm like, I don't want my number out there, but you can
If you're
easily go to our website. You can find my number. You can, sign me up for all sorts of things. There you-
you want to learn more about us, there's an About Us page.
Yes. But
Great.
yeah, no, I think, I don't know how long that was. I'd like to say, you want to leave it 30 seconds or less. Maybe if it's, like you said, having a script, have one for when you reach someone, have one for, a voicemail. And it makes it easier. So I know you can, condense your message and practice getting it down to, 20, 30 seconds. So you're not leaving a 10-minute voicemail.
Absolutely. No, that was great. I think if Al wasn't receptive to it, okay, maybe the next person, maybe the fifth person, maybe the 20th person.
Hmm.
But if you keep going, eventually you'll find someone that is going to have interest, or someone that who may have other needs out there.
Right. And I think, like we talked about the repetition, the more you do it, the more comfortable you're going to be. So even these ones that don't turn into anything where you're saying, it's majority of them won't, you're getting that practice of saying those messages over and over again. And it's just going to sound, more professional, more concise, the more you do it, and you're going to feel more comfortable with it. And I think it also helps with that rejection part too. You just, move on to the next one. You got to be like a goldfish, have a 5-second memory, you know,
Right.
and not remember that previous one. Be like, all right, next one, here we go. Next one, here we go.
Just putting in the reps. That's it.
Yeah, yeah. So how do we, as we kind of wrap up here, is there anything else kind of want to touch on about cold calling? I think we've covered, kind of how to do it, how we do it, some of the success stories we've had, giving people some examples. Anything else you want to touch on?
Yeah, I mean, I think in general, um, there's probably a negative connotation towards cold calling. Oh, like, oh, I
Mhm.
would never do cold calling, or oh, you know, um, I don't want to do cold calling at all, or I could see a lot of people having that mentality around it. But I go back to what I said earlier. Some of the largest commissions, not just one commission, but commissions over the years have been from cold calls and from, really trying to be strategic and thoughtful about how you're helping. Ultimately, you're trying to help your client. If you have an exclusive agreement with a client to sell their property or lease their property, they're looking for results, and sometimes those results can come from having something generally listed, but there could be situations where um, a seller does not want to sign up at their property, does not want other people to know, doesn't want tenants to know, their own tenants to know
Mhm.
that something's for sale, And you have to think creatively of how can you get the message out. And if you're unable to advertise online and tell people about it without, having them sign a confidentiality agreement, cold calling sometimes can be a great way to strategically get your message out.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And like going back to the point of like we're providing them an opportunity. We're not selling them on something. I think trying to have that mindset around cold calling too. And then also that, if we have a buyer that's looking to purchase something, it's like, we're bringing someone who has, you know, 500,000, 5 million, $5 million willing, depending on what this property is worth. And these people might be like, oh wow, someone wants to buy this place. It's like, um, so giving them, these opportunities. And I think thinking about it that way helps in the mindset of when you're delivering these messages and doing these cold calls.
Yeah, and if you're helping a buyer, right, just to that point, and the buyer's like, oh, I'm just not seeing anything that, meets what I'm looking for in terms of a return or location,
Hmm.
and you're able to deliver and bring something that is just no one knows about it. It's a quiet transaction, and the buyer's happy. And in some situations, maybe just for different reasons, like I said, the seller doesn't want anyone to know, but they want to sell, and the buyer wants to buy, and you're able to broker that. It's great. It's a great situation. It can turn out to be a win-win-win, so, like you said, it's bringing opportunities and trying to really have a mindset around, what value are you bringing when you're calling someone? You're not just calling just to call, but what value are you bringing? Trying to be very thoughtful around it.
Definitely. Well, that's awesome. I think we covered a lot today, talking about cold calling. Hopefully, it was helpful to listening. And as always, if you have any questions, comments, we're happy to talk about those and get back to you, in a future episode. You can reach us by leaving a comment on whatever platform you're listening to or watching, or you can reach us at podcast@jmj-cre.com. And we do reply to all your messages, and we hope to hear from you. And with that, I want to thank you, Josh, for your time, and thank all the
Yeah.
listeners for their time tuning in. And we'll see you next week on episode 9. Do we know what we're talking about next time?
Not yet, but we'll figure it out.
All right. Stay tuned. Thank you, everyone. Have a great day.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
The views, thoughts, and opinions expressed on the JMJ Commercial Realty podcast are those of the host and guests and do not necessarily reflect the official policies or positions of JMJ Commercial Realty or its affiliates. The information provided in this podcast is for informational and educational purposes only and should not be considered financial, legal, or real estate advice. Listeners are encouraged to consult with qualified professionals regarding their specific real estate or business needs. JMJ Commercial Realty makes no representations or warranties as to the accuracy, completeness, or suitability of any information discussed. Reliance on any information provided in this podcast is done solely at your own risk. By listening, you agree that JMJ Commercial Realty and its representatives shall not be held liable for any losses or damages resulting from the use of information shared.